I want to talk to you a little bit today who we are, what we do, and how your volunteer efforts can actually contribute to the bigger picture and the solutions that we're trying to drive. So Tangaroa Blue is Australia-wide, not-for-profit, and we really are focusing on the solution for marine debris. So we're not just a cleanup group, because if all we do is clean up, that's all we'll ever do. And we really want to get to the source of the marine debris, and cleanup is just a tool for us to get to the data, and then we can look at patterns and what kind of items are issues in certain locations, and then we can work out a source reduction plan based on that. And the banner is wrong, it says 10 years, it's actually 15, so we've been running since 2004. So yeah, just having our 15-year anniversary this year. So just some of the latest info regarding marine debris. So plastic waste entering the ocean from all sources is now estimated to be about 15 million tons per year. That's about 1 truckload going into the ocean every minute. So by the end of my talk, 30 more truckloads would have gone in, unfortunately. That's quite a bit of waste. Single-use plastics have now been found in the deepest parts of the ocean. So actually a plastic bag was found in the Mariana Trench, about over 10 kilometers deep. So it's literally everywhere. And it's estimated that about 40,000 pieces of plastic are floating around per square kilometer in our oceans. And this has just been found last year that microplastics are now in our poop. So they're literally inside of us now as well, which is a big concern because there's no studies to really show what that means. We don't know what are the impacts of us actually eating plastic now. So the main tool that we use in order to determine the source of the marine debris and all that stuff, we developed Australian Marine Debris Initiative Database, or AMDI. It's a bit easier. So that's basically our on-ground network for anyone from just volunteers, individuals, to organizations, to community groups, and basically anyone and everyone can submit data into this database, and then it's all collected together in a national level, or we can scale it down to state, to area like Southwest Victoria, or Nelson specifically. So some of the objectives that we're trying to reach with this is to obviously remove marine debris from the coastline and waterways. So that's one of the solutions, that we have to get the stuff that's already out there. We have to collect that. And to collect scientific, consistent data on the types and amounts of marine debris being found. So that's the important thing, that if everyone is kind of doing it in their own way, counting this stuff or choosing to count only certain items, it doesn't really provide you the big picture. We want to get into as much detail as possible and capture as much as we can. And obviously then when we have the data, then what we try to do is to track the source when that's possible. So if it's a lot of takeaway coffee cups that we're seeing on a specific beach, we can, if people are tracking the brand, we can be like, oh, okay, this must be from this specific cafe in the area. Let's contact them and get them put up some incentives to get reusable coffee cups and stuff like that. So we're really trying to get to the source of the issue and not just collect it. And obviously important part is then to work with all the stakeholders to find solutions. So that would be state government, that could be your council, that could be community groups, it could be businesses. So no one can really tackle this issue by their own. So we really need to work together, and everyone can kind of put their own weight into the issue. And obviously then important bit is to actually increase awareness and education. So again, from this data, we can make up some kind of educational material for people, and that's really what we're trying to do, and engage with school groups and stuff like that. So really get the word out there that this is an issue, but there's also solutions. So just to give you an idea how the whole process works with the data. So obviously everything pretty much starts with the beach or river cleanup. whether it's just one person, it could be a small group, it could be something from a business that you decide that, hey, let's have a volunteer day out this Friday, let's go do a beach cleanup. Then at the end of the cleanup, this is the fun part, you need to sort the debris. So basically we usually put out a big tarp, and then we have different categories for different materials, different items, and then you kind of sort everything in their own piles, weigh everything, count how many bags are collected and all that stuff. I'm just going to circle around an example of the data collection sheet that we'd usually use, just to give you an idea what kind of categories we have, so you can already have a look. I know that it might seem a bit daunting, like, oh my goodness, there's so many, but it's manageable. Once you get into it, it gets pretty easy. Then obviously important part is the actual data collection, so that's where the sheet would come in. So you count every item and track them on the data sheet. And then you log into the AMDI database. So there's a few different ways to do this. You can simply just take a picture of the sheet and you can email it to us, and we'll do the typing for you, which is the fastest way. If you are fine with typing, you can also go to our website, log in, and then just log in all the details through there. And we now also do have a free app. So if you're going with someone who's good with the smartphone, they can already type everything in as you go on an app as well. So once we've been collecting that data from a specific beach or as a state or national level, that's when we can start to see the patterns and we can try to track the source. So it could be that it's from the land, it could be that it's from sewage system, it could be from stormwater, could be from industry, businesses doing the wrong thing, could be from fishing boats or just carried there with currents. But we need that data first. A little bit longer term until we can start to see those patterns. And then we can work out source reduction plans. So again, we have heaps of resources on this on the website as well. So usually they're community run. Sometimes it could be council as well, or community and council together. But basically, once we know what are the main items that we want to tackle and where they're coming from, then we can make a plan that, okay, how we're going to make sure that there's less of that stuff ending up in our ocean and washing up to our beaches. After the source reduction plan is done, we still want you to keep up collecting the data, because otherwise we have no way of knowing if it's actually working. So that's why it's an ongoing process. Where AMDI is at the moment, so we have over 3,000 cleanup sites registered all over Australia. You can't really see, but you can see that there's a lot of stuff happening. And there's been over 17,000 cleanups registered in the AMDI, over 400,000 volunteer hours registered, so that's a lot of volunteering. And we just went over 15 million items removed last week. So 15 years, 15 million items. But it's really picked up quite recently, because up until 2011, we were about 6 million items. So it's really gone up quite recently. And it's probably not due to all that there's just more out there, there's just more groups actually coming in and putting the data. So don't despair. And over 1,200 tons of debris removed. So what does the data then tell us? So really every site is different. No beach is the same. So on some beaches we find a lot of consumer items. So this would be your more visited beaches where people go with their takeaway food. You get a lot of tourists, that kind of stuff. Some beaches would end up with a lot of nurdles. Those are the resin pellets that are the raw form of plastic. So that might be a sign that there's some kind of plastic industry manufacturer or factory close by. Some beaches, I think here, fishing items are a big issue. So again, that tells us something as well, and the source and all that stuff. And then there's cotton buds. So that's our big issue in Warrnambool due to sewage treatment, ocean outfalls, and people flushing their buds where they shouldn't. So just Victorian stats here. So top 10 items at the moment, foam is number one. Probably mainly that's within Port Phillip Bay, because they get so many shipping containers and that kind of stuff. So they collect a lot of foam in that area. Plastic bits second one, so that's your small plastic pieces that you kind of don't know anymore what it was. It's just broken down into little bits. Cigarette butts, third, always pretty much the number one on a cleanup, depending on location. Food packaging, plastic, film remnants, bottle tops and lids, drink bottles, and that's almost 20,000. And that's very interesting. I had a look at the South Australia stats. Plastic bottles don't make the top 10 because they have a container deposit scheme, which we don't. So here you go. Sanitary items, tissues, nappies, condoms, cotton buds also make the list. Straws, confection sticks, cups, plates and cutlery, so your takeaway stuff. And paper and cardboard is the number 10 currently. So what do we use the data for? Obviously, one of the main things is on community level, so we can do source reduction workshops together with community and make educational programs as well. And obviously then important is also to work together with the local government, so we can lobby for bans, so we can provide data for plastic bag bans, how many plastic bags have been found on the Victorian beaches, litter data, operational data, and then state and federal government level, obviously, this will complement any kind of submissions. So right now, green submission for banning some single-use plastic items is open for submissions. So our data has helped some groups put submissions forward. So yeah, it works on many different levels, basically. So what needs to change to stop the release is to come up with more of these source reduction plans. So we need to find more ways to make sure that less and less of stuff actually ends up in the ocean. So I have a few examples on different levels. On international level, we're actually contributing data for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So that's been an exciting new thing. So we're actually expanding outside of Australia now and providing data even on an international level because it's relevant and it's trustworthy because it's a scientific process. On national level, an example is, does anyone know what that thing is on the down corner, what item that is? It's a weather balloon, yes. So weather balloons started really, and parts of them washed up to the shores, and our data collection was kind of capturing that. And you can see that 2012, almost 200 pieces were recorded that year alone. It was mainly northern Queensland, Cape York, that kind of area. And then when we had this data, we could go back to them and be like, hey, this is how many pieces we're collecting. What solutions do you have so that this doesn't happen? So took some time, as you can see, it stayed pretty consistent, couple more years. But then finally they got back to us saying that they're going to release less, so they stopped sending any weather balloons from 4 stations, I believe. And they also changed because it used to be basically the hard plastic part, then the massive balloon, and then polystyrene as well. And polystyrene is like the worst possible thing to be out there. So they changed the polystyrene part to cardboard and foil. And then we saw a drop. So again, this data collected, just done by volunteers. It was reliable enough for them to make a massive change. And then we saw a huge drop on what we were collecting. On state level, great example is Port Phillip Bay. So they've actually launched 11 source reduction plans in the past year. So they've tackled a lot of items based on the data collected there. So they get a lot of the consumer items. So main things have been cigarette butts, straws, takeaway cups, that kind of stuff. Also fishing line over there as well, plastic-free events, and all of their source reduction plans have had a positive impact. So they kept collecting the data, and after each of them, we've seen a reduction on the numbers. Numbers change, but all of them have had a positive impact. And then more local, so Warrnambool, another great example. So it's gone from massive nurdle incident that really kind of changed the whole community, got together behind that, and that really raised awareness on a national level on the issue. Currently, over 20,000 cotton bud sticks collected on one beach alone, Shelly Beach, due to the sewage treatment plant. They have their ocean outfall next to this beach, and people are basically flushing that down the toilet, and it ends up in our beaches. Also issues with fat balls, another really yummy thing coming out of the sewage. So yeah, again, these are highly toxic. They suck microplastics in them. They're just a nasty thing to have out there, and we don't want animals to be eating them. But yeah, thanks to the tireless efforts of the community, we're starting to see positive results. So we've known for a while that One on Water was looking into expanding the sewage treatment plant, which we didn't really know what did that mean. They were going to be taking more stuff in. Does that mean more stuff is going out? So thanks to community pressure alone, pretty much, they are going to be investing a lot of money on additional screening, which at this stage we don't know if that's going to exactly solve the issue, but we're hoping that it will. So we're just going to have to wait for them to install it. And even they altered the original plan to add even more screens in, which was announced a couple weeks ago. So that's very exciting, and that definitely would not have happened without community volunteers to put the pressure in and collecting the data to show that cotton buds and other sewage-related items are an issue on this beach. And related to that, Warrnambool community has also launched last weekend a national campaign called Better Buds. So basically calling people to take the pledge to not purchase any more plastic stem cotton buds and not to flush them down the toilet. We do have biodegradable options in pretty much every shop now. There's paper stem ones, bamboo, sugarcane. I have some samples left in the front on the table, so if you don't use one of those biodegradable ones yet, definitely come and see me, I'll give you some. And you can also take a pledge with us later. I have a little sign, Colin can take some pictures, and you can make the pledge not to purchase them anymore. But again, that's a small community volunteer group that has just released a national campaign, which is really impressive. Another important part, like I said, you need to work together with all the stakeholders. So big part of them is the industry and the corporations. So a great example of a partnership that Tangaroa Blue has with a corporation is We Refill. So they basically provide these water refill stations at festivals so that people don't purchase any more plastic bottles. And they've made some massive changes in big festivals, because you go through tens of thousands of bottles, but none when you have these. And it uses tap water, so it's better for the environment. It doesn't use spring water like some water companies do when they bottle water. It's filtered, it's cold, and you have an option to get a reusable bottle or a little collapsible cup, because it's also been studied that people drink more water when it's a cup rather than a bottle. So makes the festivals more healthy as well, because people are drinking more water. So really great example on how you can make big change with such a simple switch. If you offer people a better option, they usually go for it. And another big one, working together with the plastic industry. So this has been a big one as well. So like I mentioned, I'm sure all of you have heard of the nurdle incident in Warrnambool. So these little nurdles are an issue pretty much everywhere now. So Operation Clean Sweep, we brought it from the States to Australia, and that's basically a free program that plastic industry manufacturers can sign up and have better ways of managing their pellets so that they don't lose them into the nature. So it could be better cleaning practices, could be something to do with the transport and stuff like that. And that's been a really great way to engage with the plastics industry. And because for them, it's about saving money. They want to save the pellets and the nurdles. They don't want to discard them into the nature. But for us, it's an environmental income. So even though we might not have the same drive, we do want the same thing, so we can still work together. So how can you guys get involved? So obviously joining the AMDI network as a volunteer. So collecting cleanup data at a coastal site and submitting the data into the AMDI database on paper, online, or via the app. And we will be having a workshop here in Nelson, so I'll be coming back in January on the 29th, and we'll be meeting at the CFA to do a workshop. So that's where I'll go deeper into how you actually do the sort and the data count, because it can be a bit daunting. So it helps a little bit when you have someone there to help you get started, and then you're confident enough to continue to do it on your own or in little groups. And obviously, lastly, we'd like you to be a better bud for our oceans today. So I have a little sign with me. So afterwards, if you are okay having your picture posted on our Better Buds campaign webpage, you can take a pledge with the sign and we'll post it there. Or if you're not comfortable sharing your face on social media, that's fine as well. You can hold the sign like this and cover your face. It's still one pledge more.